Namaste.
Namaste.
Angikam bhuvanam yasya vachikam sarvavangmayam aharyam chandrataraadi tam namastakvikam shivam. We bow down to the Almighty who has been amongst us, within us, and everywhere in the whole world, dancing and sharing joy, sorrow, and different kinds of emotions with all of us, and yearning all the Jivatmas towards Him to become one. We salute to Lord Nataraja on this auspicious day, post a festival day yesterday. We have finished Swarna Gauri Vrata and Sri Varasiddhi Vinayaka Vrata yesterday, and today we have this beautiful evening, a relaxed evening. I guess all of you. So we are joining. I think I expect a lot of us to join together to hear to this consummate artist of today on Sankatha, a series of male dancers conversation, Bharatanatyam artists who are acclaimed nationally and internationally. Today, we have Sri Anil V. Iyer on board, and we heartily welcome Anil onto the board. Namaste, sir.
Thank you so much.
Anil is a very known personality among the fraternity of dance in our state and even other states of India. But still, I take this privilege to introduce Sri Anil Iyer to you all. The well-known artist Anil Iyer is a Ministry of Culture, Government of India Young Artist Scholarship awardee, and he's also a Doordarshan graded artist too. Besides dance, Anil is also a great Carnatic vocalist and hones his skills in theatre under Dr. B. Jayashri and is active in acting, singing, and other theatre allied activities too. As part of Prasiddha repertory, Anil toured China and was one of the members of Indian Ambassadors for Culture and performed for International Intangible Cultural Heritage organized by UNESCO, Government of China, and also for International Country Music Week in 2013. He has presented several solo and group performances at various state and national festivals, including Mysore Dasara Utsav, Hampi Utsav, Theatre Olympics, Bharat Rang Mahotsav, Delhi, Rang Mahotsav Delhi, Nisha Gandhi Festival, and so on. His passion for teaching made him open Shivoham School of Performing Arts in Bengaluru, where he trains several young and aspiring dancers to experience this beautiful art with quality and integrity. Along with his dedication in the performing arts, Anil is a counseling psychologist too. He has been invited by many colleges and organizations in India and abroad to present workshops and guest lectures related to these. He is also a guest faculty at Sampurna Montfort College and Jain, deemed to be university in Bangalore. He continues to work as consultant in India's leading employee assistance program provider, one-to-one-help.net. As a Bharatanatyam artist, he has received many awards and recognitions. He is known for his energetic yet graceful dancing and has received critical acclamation for his dance too. As an ardent teacher, he is known for his understanding of literature in dance and popular for traditional compositions which he is passing on through which he has got through his parampara. Here we have the great consummate artist of today, Anil V. Iyer. Welcome again, Anil.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I was a little overwhelmed also with some adjectives that you kept using in between. Not sure how to take it, but then I would say I'm so grateful for all the learning and practice and all the inspiration that not just from my gurus but also from fellow dancers, like so many of you here, and also most importantly like my students who've constantly been helping me evolve, learn, and grow with them. So thank you.
You're almost concluding your session by saying all these things.
No, because it was quite overwhelming for me. It's like, yeah, there's so many things that you kept adding. I was wondering.
So yeah, as we all know you, you're like very focused. Especially when I know you a little earlier from earlier years, very focused and very keen on kind of observing and absorbing things. That's what I know, Anil, because I think we have met in a couple of festivals like, as common audience, and sometime you performing and sometime me performing, and things like that in Bangalore. Especially, I remember those moments when we shared, like, a lot of positive thoughts about what's being presented on stage, and that's how I felt that, those positive vibes which I got you have helped me a lot after I have come back home and then started working on every composition or my presentation as well. So I think it's really good to have you on board, and I would, I mean, fondly call you as Anil rather than calling
Yes.
Sir or G or
Please do. Yeah,
Anna.
yeah.
So I think
No, no,
that'll be
no,
good.
not, no other
So,
prefix and
Anil,
suffix.
I know you a little later part of you. Like, I think already you were a very, chiseled artist by the time I came to know about you, like a, colleague in the field of arts. But we wanted to know, like, what brought you to this art form. And each of us, I think we've reached almost 48 and plus episode, but still each of us have a different story to share about. So, do you have anybody in your family who are practicing these kind of art forms, or it was like, somebody was very interested in your family but ended up, prompting you to take it up, or you took it up like invariably, or is it accidental, incidental, so and so and so on?
It's like it's an exciting journey for me also to discover where my interest towards performing arts have come in. And I think over the recent years I've been trying to find more dots and trying to connect it. But going back to my childhood, where I began when I was 9 years old, I must say the interest just got ignited through watching the classical numbers being choreographed in my school for the annual day function, where the first dance used to be a classical dance, and the ones who learned and practiced classical dance were performing. And I used to just perform all Bollywood numbers like anybody else with all my classmates, and just watching them was so exciting. And then one day I told my parents that I want to learn, and they said yes. But interestingly, when I was just walking around my home, that's Jayanagar in Bangalore, so I happened to found a teacher where they had put a board saying Bharatanatyam classes conducted here. So I randomly walked into their house, asked them everything, and they told these are the days, Saturdays, Sundays, this is the fee, etc. I came home, told my parents, they agreed. They thought that I'm just interested and let's see how this would go. And I just began continuing. I still remember February 12th was the date that I joined, and this was if I'm not wrong, it's 1999. Yes, February 12th, 1999. And then almost after 8, 10 months is when my parents actually met my teacher, or close to a year. That's when. Until then, they just believed me, trusted me, going, practicing, paying the fee, learning, coming back home, showing all the excitement. It continued that way for a couple of years. As a school going child, I was more inclined into academics. I practiced dance, but before dance, I think my interest towards art started with music when I was 7 years old. Sorry, 6 years old is when my father had put me to music, because there was a very good teacher who stayed in the same lane. And I started learning music first, then got into dance. But with my seventh board exam, there was a break, and I think I stopped going for a year. And my father met my teacher, and in between he said, "See, I met your teacher. You should just go back. There is senior exam. It seems your teacher is so interested. I want you to complete these exams." Being again an energetic and over ambitious parent, like most of our dance students' parents are, right? So that's when I got back to dancing. Otherwise, if I had not been pushed at that point of time, I don't think I would have gotten back. So after that, dance became a priority, or my first choice of, I would say, the way of life, and then academics. And now it's trying to balance with the two things, I must say. So this is how the journey started. Continued to practice, and started continuing to learn under Guru Narmada. When Narmada auntie was teaching, I think that's when I got inspired to take dance a little more seriously, maybe as a profession, or get involved more. When I used to watch, I used to dance half, and the half the time I would watch all seniors dancing. And unfortunately, these students nowadays, they do not get chances to sit and watch. Neither they have time because of various other things to focus on, or distractions or divided attention. Maybe fortunate enough for me was when I was sitting in class, Auntie used to teach, Satyana used to come, and I mean, all of us know what an inspiration he is to, especially male dancers and all. And I have watched Padmini Upadhyay's dancing in class. So many more. I can't just name. Rukmini Vijay Kumar used to visit from the US, and during the holiday, she used to dance a lot. So I've grown up watching them. And then I remember Anupama Hoskere and Purnima Auntie, all of them, Anupama Auntie and all dancing. So Bashni Akka was there. Lakshmi Gopal Swamyaka was there. So some of them used to visit, but most regularly used to be Satyana, so diligent in his practice and all. So watching them, doing some adavus behind them, learning with them, little things, all of these got so excited. And the most joyous moment was when all senior students of Narmada Auntie joined together to celebrate 25th year celebrations at Yavanika. And Auntie was like, ನೀನು ಬರ್ತೀಯ ಬಾರೋ ರಿಹರ್ಸಲ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಬಂದು ನೋಡು ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. She invited, and all of them were dancing, right from Sandarika, Malti Nandini Mehta, Didi, and everyone. Nirupama Akka was there. So watching them, so much fun. They all enjoyed dancing, and it's so rare to see such established soloists coming together,
Coming
and
together.
not yes, and not having a very competitive spirit, but having the just the spirit of dance. All of this just ignited that spark in me, and I enjoyed. And in fact, I was taken to a lunch also with them. I was all alone, didn't know anyone, but just observing. ಕಣ್ಣು ಕಣ್ಣು ಬಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪಿಕ ಪಿಕ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು. That was how I still remember. I was just 14 at this point of time. Then, yes, started showing a little more interest. And with that, I remember Nirupama Akka telling Narmada Auntie that she's doing a production and she wants male dancers, and Narmada Auntie sending me there. So this way, gotten exposed to performing with other dance companies. And after Narmada Auntie passed away, it was Purnima Auntie who started teaching at Shakuntala Nrityalaya, and later had her own school because she had moved from the US, Boston, and stayed in Bangalore. So continued to be disciple of Purnima Auntie, and that is where I must say I started honing skills as a dancer, because the perspectives, the understanding of dance, not just dancing, but knowing the depth of it. So many other aspects continued from 2015 onwards, and still practicing. Sorry, 2005, I think so, if I'm not
Five.
wrong. Yeah, sorry. No, 2000, something around 2009, 2008. This is when Narmada Aunty passed away, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So 2007, 2008, I continued, and then still practicing, learning, and enjoying. This is how the journey has been.
So I think it's a wonderful like opportunity, and you got to go under and tutelage under a great guru of our state, Narmada Aunty. So something which you have observed. I know you are a very keen observer as a teacher, because it's not about the items we teach, but the methodology, which is evolving over the years. Now, anything, nothing is constant except the change, right? So she was also a torch bearer of how the parampara was brought from Tamil Nadu, where she learnt, and she got it into our state, and it
Yes.
personalized her own things and then got it to all of us. So, what are your observations and learnings for your life or as a teacher from Narmada Aunty?
I think from Narmada Aunty, the passion, the zeal is something if I recollect, that stands out. But otherwise, not much that I can think about or point at, because maybe I was too young, or I was not thinking enough back then. So it was just being in awe with her energy and her childlike personality, and always creating something. But something that I still remember is she would probably, I mean, it was her old age, and she also used to struggle to see certain things. But when we make a mistake, she would identify it so clearly and say, this is not okay. And she would tell that, I can recognize all the mistakes so easily. Okay, my eyesight is sharp for that. And in the process, the way she created compositions so quick, so I mean, the permutation combinations for math, arithmetic, the calculations that she made, changed the jatis and altered it on the spot, and also who sang and taught throughout the class, be it 3 hours or 4 hours of a teaching, that strength that she would showcase while teaching, that energy is something that I really admire. And that the way she would change things so quickly. And most importantly, I could see now when I do some items that I have learned, there are little differences from what I do and what others do. It's not that she changed over the years. There were some moments she changed based on an individual and their
Correct.
capacities also. So these are the things that's nice to recall. Apart from this, I can't remember much because it's really young. And also, all that I remember is going from school directly to class, and sometimes dance in the uniform, school uniform. And then she used to say, "Get your dhoti, get changed, change it over here itself." So then started learning that, changing my clothes, and then again back to uniform, travel all the way for about 1 hour back home. So I think the experiences just remember about traveling, learning, exploring this whole journey. That's it.
As we all know, even Purnima ma'am is a great, great teacher, and also she's the one who, has kept that tradition intact. Though whatever she innovates, but we have those kind of the framework of the technique and parampara, which is there very much intact in her. So, what kind of traditional compositions, especially something like extraordinary types, which you have learned under ma'am, and you feel that okay, these were the traditional things which were actually there, because it's been mentioned even in your profile that you're going to propagate it. So how did you get it from Purnima ma'am?
Yeah. So this would also answer to the previous question that you asked. So a lot of parampara and the roots or the depth of this art form is something that I gained from Purnima Aunty only. So she has been telling about how we need to go back to our past, because there's so much to explore there, and from that we need to continue to move forward. So right from learning the traditional swarakatu, which she had learned from Narmada Aunty, Dagade there, it's like the torchbearer item of Tanjore
And
parampara
your
only.
parampara.
Yeah. So right from that to some quartet varnams, rarely we see quartet varnams being performed, but something that I've continued to explore even with my students is what Purnimanti has taught, to understand the socio-political aspects of that varnam, or the history, the tradition of the temple, and how things were performed back then. So everything would be mentioned in the literature itself. So we just need to research, we just need to explore more, dive a little deeper to probably like bounce back with something, like diving deeper to find some gems and then collect them and present it in your dance. So along with Varnams, right from Auntie introducing us to Kavatvams, going back to
That's
Panchamurti Kavatvams and Navasandhi Kavatvams, all of this. So that during my scholarship, Auntie was like very encouraging for me to go to Sudharni Raghupati ma'am when she was conducting Kautham's workshops for Abhai's Abhivriddhi Shala, and also learning those items, practicing, and some quartet compositions mostly like Tilanas, Jatiswarams, and Varnams have been practice. And right now, Auntie is, I mean, unfortunately, I have not gotten much chance to get exposed to it, but then she's working on Suladi
yeah.
and other
She,
traditional
she's
Karnataka
reconstructed a
compositions.
Kshetra Suladi.
Yes,
Yeah.
Kshetra
Yeah.
Suladi. So that has been our joy in learning the traditional items.
So, learning this is one side, and Anil, I think you have seen extensive performances across. And there are a lot of changes and reformations and additions, etc., happening to this, our genre of Bharatanatyam itself, if you say, even taking off the the line of borderline of Bani also, because now everybody is like, learning from different teachers. And I think there's a very when you see a presentation, you can't even say that this is particularly from this style or something like that. But there are a
Yes.
lot of additions even after that. There is martial arts in Bharatanatyam. There's a lot of things happening here. So do you think that with all these kind of pressures, and the changes which are going on, does our traditional items which were very musical, especially from the parampara which you come, which is completely, every movement is very musical, though it is nritta or
Yes.
nritya, everything was like, calculated and just to there, nothing too much and not too less, like, the definition of aesthetics, what we get it, what we see in the presentations.
Hmm.
So do they still have some kind of a value, and value in the sense, do is it received in the same way with all those kind of, new experiments bombarding the stages and festivals?
Absolutely. I do not deny a bit when I say that it is received, it is appreciated, and even people ask. So, even right from the examinations and all, when some of my students have danced, or even when my dance classmates have danced, I remember Auntie also sharing that how the judges would talk about these items or understand or ask about it. And even I have experienced that last year also when I was performing after the performance, Shankar and Kandaswamy Shankarna was telling that this whole 1 hour was filled with tradition, and it was so joyful to see that there's nothing that has been like so diluted there. Yet
Correct.
it was something fresh. Again, like you mentioned, I think when you watch me dance now, I would not follow the core Tanjavur Bani, but there are elements, there are shades of the Bani retained, and there are some adavus that's so authentic to the Bani. But only when we learn this Tanjavur style, maybe one would understand the patterns or the compositions of adavus, how it's constructed. So, because we've been learning so many the parampara items, we realize that after this adavu, this
This
adavu
is
flows in. So it's so natural for us. It's like now ingrained after getting exposed for almost last 7 8 years or little more. So I would say people still acknowledge it. People are so enthusiastic to know more about it. But ultimately, it depends on how one approaches to these items. And at the same time, there are younger, dancers who are younger to me, also my own age group dancers telling that, oh, this item was so lengthy, this was a little boring, this was difficult. Oh, quartet varnams are so difficult to get attention of dancers. And personally, I would say there's nothing difficult, there's nothing easy. It all depends on how much of effort one would put in to understand. Only when you understand, you will be able to communicate. And when you are able to communicate, your audience are going to understand and share the joy, right? So it might be a little difficult. I won't deny that, because it is of that old text, very rich in literature, music,
music.
and there are so many elements. I remember in one of these recent, I say, IPAC sessions, where one musician was talking about Mohamana Varnam also, how the entire swarams in the second half starts with Dapa, only with that. So those are little joys that we have to catch and we have to understand. And there are some varnams which will have swaraksharams in Sahitya. So for us, we need to consult the scholar, the musician, the teacher, or any other person who is from that background to understand what these texts mean. And only when we understand, we'll be able to deliver or do justice to it, right? So I think the process makes it more tedious, and if no patience and no energy to delve into it, it will be boring. But performance or dance element will never be boring.
So you mean to say that it's a responsibility of the dancer to dwell in as to what's the subject is and the content of the item, and then the presentation is completely dependent on him. It's not like, the perceiver is going to lose interest if you're going to do these traditional items. I think it's well said,
Absolutely.
because because you need all kind of things to exist in the world. We don't say that you say a complete no to new experiments. Yes, new things should exist and old things also should exist. Then only we find
Yes,
that this is new and this is old. Otherwise, everything becomes very a routine kind of a thing. I think it's very interesting to know this,
true.
Anil. And yeah, I think you've already answered this, but I just want to throw light to this. As a performer, what is your preference, when you give a show of 1 hour, or say 1.5 hour or half an hour slot, or whatever is that? So how would you prefer to prepare for it? Your how is be your the repertoire which you're going to select?
Okay, firstly, it depends on the time slot. So if it's half hour, I would, again, if it is like a dance festival or a sabha kind of a performance filled with art conversions, then maybe a Varnam is always a first choice, because there is no joy as much as dancing a Varnam
Well,
and sweating out for 30 minutes or more than that. In fact, we even 30 minutes is so less. Generally, what we practice and we perform is at least for 35 to 40 minutes, even till date. And it's so different from a lot of other dance schools where they have aligned with the current demand of like 25 minutes or max 30 minutes of Varnam. So we would still present it in its whatever original form that we can contain at this day. But otherwise, depending on the audience or the organization inviting, we would look at the short items based on probably any occasion or the language, the region, and so on, that way.
it's
So
nice.
at least
So
taking one item that is
yeah.
more closer to
So
that
you
place.
wanna you wanna say that you wanna concentrate on one item and establish that as one main thing, and probably that strikes the whole performance with that key repertoire, one element. And I think most probably it'll be Varnam.
That will be, I think, it has mainly aligned to Bangalore or maybe some major cities,
Yeah, yeah,
but
Sabha.
in,
Yeah.
yeah, far off places it's just been kritis,
Yeah.
some opening numbers, some, it's no, to put it in a layman term, a pep number, as we can call it, like a tilana, something that is spontaneous, that's quick, energetic. But I make it a point there's at least one piece which is just an abhinaya oriented. It could be a javali or a padam or a devarnama or a bhajan. One is not only probably a breather for me but also for the audience, because this is what we have experienced. Auntie often tells that too many movements can be like, as the dancer is on the audience's face or dancing on in one's mind, there has to be something that can calm them, make them feel a lot lighter, make them feel so much in connect with their own emotions, embracing their
Correct.
thoughts and emotions is so important. So that, hence, taking one abhinaya piece is like a mandatory thing.
That's nice. So, being a performer, and also you've just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you stick to the tradition, and as much as possible, you want to retain the learnings, whatever you've got it from your parampara, and take it forward. So, and other side, we also see that you collaborate with a lot of artists, and you've been performing in a lot of productions of other dancers too. So do you think that there's a lot of conflict when you go there? I mean, it affects you, or kind of affects you, EFF, on your presentation later?
Not really. I think that has been a boon for me, where being a most versatile artist, they're trying to adapt to whatever the other dancers' compositions are. And it could be, say, for example, at Abhinava Dance Company, Niroka uses a lot of karnas and charis. It was a little struggle in the beginning, but then getting exposed to it, understanding has helped to know some little more about it. Or when I danced for Vaijayanti Kashi ma'am, also doing kuchipudi for them, though I had not learned, but then learning and dancing for almost 5 6 years was still fine. I do not let one affect the other. So it's like when I'm in that space learning whatever they teach, I make it a point to hold the authenticity of that space, that time, and that energy. And then when I move out of it, it is definitely something that I have ingrained in myself. So I carry that. It's like compartmentalizing in my mind.
Correct. I think that is it very important. Do you suggest that it should be like that? You have to become more versatile. Otherwise, I think it'll be very hard to find your own identity. Otherwise, because you start associating with certain kind of an artist, and your dance keeps on changing, so you don't find a kind of a proper identity for yourself in terms of presentation. Do you think so that people
See,
has they can receive it, but they have to keep it like as you rightly said, the compartmentalization has to be there.
but see, again, no, I would always suggest that think what your body tells you. So, I mean, this could also, the words that I'm probably saying now could be coming from me as a psychologist, but then partly it is how subconsciously influenced by my learning, and I'm a teacher. How a body has its own ability to communicate what fits into us and what doesn't fit. And what fits into us and what we identify and practice becomes ours. And it's so natural, it's organic, and people can feel it when you do it. And people can easily identify when it is forced. It's like just like when you force feed, it is not going to retain in you, it is just going to come out in a different form, right?
Different
And
form.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's somewhere you feel like it's little cringing. It's like you're taken back there as an audience. So whatever sits well, it's good. But then learning not just dance, but connected to dance, whatever it is. It could be literature, it could be music. Music is a must, I would say. Or getting into other work like an instrument or art and so many other aspects is very, very important. So that way the versatility in this form, like learning multiple art forms that can enhance your main art that you are performing or pursuing, is important. But within that art versatility, I'm little unsure because I wouldn't be the right person to talk more about it, as I have stuck only to Bharatnatyam. There are
Okay.
many dancers who are doing Kuchipudi Bharatanatyam, Kathak
Kathak.
Bharatanatyam, Odissi Bharatanatyam, and so many other things. And they have been successful in maintaining these dualities so well. And some do struggle, but I don't know. I think I'm not so good at commenting on that because I have not practiced it. So I don't have the right to say anything there.
You've tried your hand in doing a good Natuangam too. I have personally seen you doing a lot of work on Natuangam, and I think it's very interesting to know that you do a very good job whenever you are on the board for doing Natuangams. So how did you get into that? So was it like easily gotten into you before itself, or you had to do some kind of struggle and imbibe it or something like that?
Okay,
Because you do it for
my
Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi also, if
yeah,
I am
yeah.
not wrong. So
Yes. I think my strength is observation. So I'm a very keen observer, and then I keep grasping it. And another aspect is I absorb and I practice it, as in I implement it immediately. So I've observed, and when I know that there is, when I go to watch the performances, I would have watched some Natwangam artist presenting certain syllables or certain rhythm structure in certain manner, and that would have striked a notion me saying, wow, that's something interesting. And I would keep that in my mind, and next time when I get a chance, I very easily implemented. So I think I've been little fortunate enough to absorb and implement it.
okay,
But key note is observation. I do feel that I need to learn more in that because I do not have a formal training. I honestly don't know much about it. The length and depth or breadth of Natwangam, the understanding of Tala structure is something I really don't know. There is so much more to understand there. But with whatever I have learned is just the observation learning, I must say.
It's amazing. I think, yeah. So it'll probably going deeper there. You would become a more and more perfect artist and perfectionist in that avenue. And we wish you do it very soon and very, very well too. And
Thank you.
coming back to your other avenue, which is like your formal, education and what it has led you to become a psychiatrist,
A
sorry,
psychologist.
psychologist. Yeah, I'm sorry, my bad.
No
Psychologist.
problem.
So how did that, both the fields, I think it's about all, everything is related to human psychology and emotions. And I think emotions are something which are the main thing in Indian dance, basically, if you compare it with other Western dances, Indian classical dance, rather, I would say.
Yes.
So, how did both the studies complement each other, or how did it happen to you after, like, learning psychology and looking back to these dance numbers and then your emotions and how would people receive? Is there any change of you analyzing your own self after doing that?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay.
So I think I would talk about this everywhere, where one of my professors did come and saying, being a dancer, there's so much that you can use dance as movement therapy or understanding the psyche and so on. But somehow I just cannot wrap that in my mind and put myself there to explore. Rather, like I said, if I'm doing something, I'm just into it, and if I do something else, I would give my full into it. So when I'm into psychology, be it teaching or practicing, I'm just using, maybe we can say that we still follow the Western schools of thought in psychology, and then the traditional approaches is what I still follow. uh, One thing that I must say, over the years, my teaching has changed,
Oh,
because understanding the psyche and practicing as a psychologist helped me relate to my students better. I have been a lot more open and accommodating, and sometimes I know when I'm doing wrong, and when I get to know that or realize later on that I've done something wrong, I'm able to rectify it, correct it, rather than leaving it there. So exploring and giving closure has helped in a lot, to a lot extent. And when it comes to me as a dancer, maybe the themes, to know what triggers what, like how does your thought trigger an emotion, or how does an emotion and thought lead to a particular behavior. So the triangulation between thought, emotion and behavior, which I've strongly learned from psychology, as an through the academics part, has helped me align more in a structured manner into dance. Suppose, especially with padams and javalis.
okay.
Yeah. So that I must say it has influenced a lot, but I can't see much of dance influence in psychology though, because I've not allowed myself to get influenced there.
So we all have read, at least in our junior stage of learning, that dance helps to keep your mental well-being. So, being a psychologist now, so do you, what support the statement, or you do you want to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely right. In fact, we also suggest some of them, because dance could be a self-care practice also, especially someone who's going through a lot of distress and are not having self-care practices. Dancing, music, or any kind of artwork has its own healing capacities. And personally, I feel it's because it helps you be grounded. And like when we are dancing, we are not allowing our thoughts to wander around. So when we're not wandering, we're just focusing in that moment. So being in here and now in the moment is what helps us to stay calm, stay clear in our thoughts, and also understand our emotions better, so that we function in a much healthier manner. So dancing definitely, and again, there are dancers who can wander also, and it's a human tendency as well. When you're dancing, your thoughts can be somewhere else, and immediately your dance, either your angashuddha drops down or your abhinaya, the facial expressions changes. You can see that. So when you're not wandering, but holding your thoughts and being in that moment, it is nothing but focusing on what's happening in that moment, right? So focusing on yourself and focusing on that moment. So that way it helps you to have good mental well-being. But on the contrary, I would like to tell that dance cannot be a medium to escape something that has bothered an individual from the past, because often people think that, oh, when you just dance it out, just sing it out, right? It is nothing but a distraction, like how a layman who would just go to a weekend long ride or a weekend pub partying or a vacation, but coming back they do have to face the elephant in the room, right? So dance, music, or any art cannot be a way to just discard it, but can only help you to manage. But if you think that through this you're going to heal whatever has been like the deep down wound, that is something personally I would disagree. At least now, confidently, I can say with my practice that that cannot happen, because you're probably only working at the surface level, but the deeper wounds cannot get healed through any of the practice other than you actually work on that concern.
Okay. So it can be like, an overall well-being. Dance can work for overall well-being, and then, like
Absolutely.
as you said, self-caring kind of a module. If the ailments are little lesser in sense, so if they are
Yes,
deeply like there, then I think there has to be a separate treatment for, like those kind of things, problems which we generally
definitely.
face.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's a very interesting suggestion that rather than getting into those deeper wounds, it's better to dance and keep it simple and make the life also a little simple. So, but as you rightly said, if you take up anything, yoga, music, or dance or something like that, it has to go for a long run, isn't it? So it's not like 10-day, 12-day you dance and you
Yes.
do some adus and you are free of your stress. That's as you rightly said, that's not going to happen at any point of
Hmm.
time. So
Yes.
yeah. So thank you so much for this enlightening, answer, because it is coming from a, it's like horse's mouth sort of a thing, because we talk a lot about, some people also even exaggerate saying that, yeah, you learn music and you can do this, you can do that, and everything might happen. But experience wise, people won't have it. Then when we go back to them, they would say you're not concentrating as much as it is required. So it's not about that. I think what you answered is very
Yeah.
relevant, and I think the audience
I
will
would say, along with this, there has to be another approach also. You can't say that this is the only approach and I'm going to just come out of things like rise like a phoenix. No, that can't happen, because you're just going to bury something and then trying to grow above that. But you know that there is something underneath and that keeps bothering you. It might not impact your experiences outwardly, but it will not allow you to stay calm. So what is, I mean, it's not going to benefit
very
you. At
true.
the end of the day, it is only your internal peace that matters, not about how external world perceives you, right?
Hey,
So
I got to take this main question with you as a psychologist, about this debate of, I think you're also a personal, personally you would answer this question too, but also in both the perspectives, whatever you feel right about this, this male dancer kind of this stigma, I could say, that some people accept it, some people don't accept it. Some of us think that there is a, this kind of things which male dancers need to do, and some of it which doesn't suit them, blah blah blah. And then now, before it was like no male dancer used to perform, and now only male dancers almost are performing, and then we have outraged the female performers, and it's another way around which is going now. So it's going on. I mean, the field is like, it's there. But what do you feel about this kind of, thing that male dancers should select only the items which are relevant, with male concepts, or you portraying yourself as one of the male character, like Nayaka oriented things, rather than becoming a pining Nayaka on the stage? You can learn, because many people have told me that you can learn the items to teach, because we are finally going to become teachers. If that is the goal, then there will be female students, so you learn. So people told me that we can learn and we can teach, but when it comes to performing on stage, they say strictly no. So what is your opinion about it? Because we have both sides, the argument is 50-50. So I just want to know from you what's the answer.
I haven't thought much about this. I'm going to think loudly over here in this discussion, Sagar. As a psychologist, we are all exposed to this whole idea of anima and animus, which is nothing but the masculinity and the femininity, which
Community.
both are present in every individual. It's just that all of us access to one thing at a greater level. So remember now, if I have to say I'm a male dancer, so I'm not going to access to my feminine side, right? Maybe I'm exposed to it as an individual, but as an artist also, if I say that I would know, I don't want to expose because of the society expecting us to be like this, I'm just going to suppress it. But if I would say, if something that's naturally drawing you to access it, then why stop it? Right? Anything that's forcefully stopped is just, like bottled up, it's just going to burst out later, and that in an extremely unhealthy manner. Right? So I'm not saying that as a male dancer you have to present or you have to access it and so on, like some items which are meant about astanayikas and so on. But then there is absolutely no problem in learning or even performing. But then how are you performing? It depends on how you relate to it at the end of the day. It's
Correct.
not that we do not exist in a society with only men around us, or with only, say, the patriarchal way or male I mean, though we are in a
Right.
very male dominance or male chauvinist attitude being exposed to, I would say we still make choices how to respond to our situations, how to respond to people around us, and also to a society, right? The same way we can learn, we can perform, but it all depends on how we are going to choose at the end of the day. So, I mean, I have performed different varnams or padams, and that way I think Punimanti has never stopped me, or any of us. And there are some energetic, some movements where auntie teaches other students also in our class and tells that it's okay, right? I've never heard a comment saying that, oh, this is too girly. In fact, she's okay if I keep tamra chuda hasta or if I keep dola hasta. She's never commented that way. So it's only the recent later stages, I think, men keeping katakamuka when we are dancing, or keeping in Adha Chandra on our waist, all these things. But in olden days, it was just dancing. There were no such demarcations, right? I think the more we compartmentalize, the more we label, we are not going to enjoy the free flow of thought and emotion coming out as movements, right? So it might sound like I'm contradicting because I said that I compartmentalize. So I compartmentalize. What I meant in the past was about where I perform and what I learn,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't compartmentalize what I'm doing,
Do it.
right?
Yeah,
But I
that's
have a
true.
larger boundary, a fence, but I'm not putting more fences within that fence,
Within
within
that, yeah,
that boundary. Yeah. So that's
that's
going
true.
to be rigid, like walking on a tight rope and feeling suffocated. You can't create an art that is transforming and also transferring, right?
I think that's
So
a
I
very wise
disagree with.
answer. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
disagree with the whole idea of this is
yeah,
meant for
because
men, this
I
is
just
meant for
wanted to
women.
know because in the psychological perspective, how does it happen? I think you gave the proper answer and with justification to it. So thank you so much.
See,
And
one last
yeah,
point I want to add to that is, okay, you can choose not to perform on stage, that's
that's
fine.
personal
But then
decision.
learning, practicing, and going deeper in understanding those pieces is so important, because if you're not aware of how a dance composition for a naika is written and how it's presented, or what are the emotions a woman would go through and how they would present, then as a man, you cannot reciprocate to it. right? So at the end of the day, we coexist and we reciprocate and respond to each other. And
Each
if we think that, okay, this is how a Nayaka does, how do you know that a Nayaka responds? Say in Ashtapadi, how does a Krishna would perform when Radha is angry at him? Not. It's only after knowing what goes through within a woman's mind and heart, right? So at least to know that, I mean, at least to know what a man should be performing, a male dancer should be performing, you also need to experience, go through what a woman would experience, right? Only then you can do justice. Otherwise, it'll just be at a surface level, superficial.
time. That's true. Brilliant. So another point which I want to take is not related to dance, but related to life, and I obviously connected to dance. So you're a psychologist, and you have your own profession. I think both of them are your professions now: dancing and giving your, time to psychology and oriented activities. So, do you find depending in today's time, depending completely financially on dance career, is it a safe choice for any dancer, especially male?
Definitely, yes. This again goes back to what I had learned from one of my college lecturers saying, you can do anything but be best in it. And obviously, things would be best for you. So, even as a dancer, if you're giving your 100%, the hard work and dedication, and you're trying to be best there, you will succeed and you can make name there, right? But I personally, I would say it takes a lot of courage to be only into arts because
Full time.
it is
Yeah.
uncertain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And always there is, when you're working somewhere, there is this financial security, and you know that at the end of the month or beginning of the month, your bank balance will have at least whatever the minimum amount of salary that you get. Even if it is 5,000, you know that okay, I will have 5,000 on this date.
There's
So
some
there is,
guarantee.
yes, that security you feel, right? But with dance, it's difficult. Sometimes it's not viable, sometimes it is, and a lot of times we will have to depend on our teaching. Again, depends on how you approach your teaching. Your teaching is partly to impart and partly to sustain, or your teaching is to impart and share the joy, or is your teaching only to sustain and look out for opportunities. I mean, I don't want to comment more on that because each one would make their own choices, and I can't say
Choices.
that,
That's true.
yeah, someone is charging so much and that's wrong. No, that's not wrong. Probably that's their approach, and that's fine. And someone
But
isn't.
here, the whole point here is, like as you rightly put the word, the uncertainty in the choice of the job which we're doing, any profession for that matter. The first thing which, as you rightly said, if it is 5,000 or $500, finally it is going to come to us. You need
Yes.
to have some kind of a guarantee in life. But the life of dancer right now in the society is very very uncertain, and I think I've seen lot of people during the past 2 years especially
Oh,
having a
yes.
very 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 difficult time.
Mm,
And nowhere in our history we were sorry, I am educated and you are educated in different colleges, so we know how to use computers. So somehow we did some classes online and things like that, but people who were
yes.
completely into offline teaching, they had a
Mm,
very tough time, and I think even now they are having tough times. So I've spoken
yes.
to many of them who in the rural part, and who are education is in a different way, like if they have taken commerce or arts, I think they
Mm,
had never have an exposure to our generation especially. Now they learn tally etc and all, even in commerce, so they have
mm,
something related to computer. But I think in my generation, computer people, commerce people didn't have anything to do with computers. It was only engineers and other technical professions. So I think it
mm,
was a very tough time. So do you have you given a thought, like I mean, in your own way, as to how to make it? It's a very skeptical one, but then how do we make this profession more reliable? Because we find more people, more promising people, but they leave out at some point of time. Even the parents, they are not able to take this, because there are a lot of people now doing
mm,
bachelor's and masters professionally, But I don't
Right.
know where are they going to be placed later after finishing their masters. Some of my students also are doing masters, but I don't know what they will do after 2 years, because this got into me once my students registered for that master's course in different universities after finishing their Vidvat too. So I was just wondering, what are they going to do? Because establishing a dance school, which I am going through now, the struggle, we all know how much time does it take. And I
Yes.
should say some of us were really lucky, so we could establish very soon. I should admit that also.
True.
Depends
True.
on the region, the time when we establish everything.
Yes.
So in today's time, what are they going to do? So have you given a thought about some easy ways to, like, stabilize yourself in field of dancing? It's a very tough question, though. I mean, this is the last one.
I think this is like the googly there. It is difficult. We need to admit that it's not going to be a cakewalk, right?
Yes,
Maybe having something to fall back is a way for you to gain that momentum and push back to where you want to be. So we need to create that space where we can fall back and reach where we want to be. How are we going to do? Maybe again, strong academic background and having an alternate profession at times to fall back, or maybe family support or partners. Okay, it need not be that only husbands need to support, even the wives can support, depends, right? Or
correct,
whatever, however partners that you're identifying and what kind of relationship that you're in. So how are you going to gain support? You need to understand and create that safety net.
correct.
And it's like we're all on this trampoline, right? We are bouncing every now and then. And
Mhm.
the trampoline is something that we need to make sure that it is stable, not that when we jump up and then fall back, the trampoline is going to break. No. So that is at an individual capacity.
Correct.
There is no one solution or one method there. So like
That's
you mentioned, it might also surprise when we see so many engineers, so many doctors, or maybe doctors, yes, how many of our doctors we still in dirt need, right? And there are so many other professions where there are more people coming into these professions, yet the demand is not decreasing. And I'm sure even for dancers, like there are dance schools, and every school now I think has 50s, 80, 100, 200 students, and still there is more demand, right? But what matters is the quality of your work
correct.
and being true to your own self, and the art that you're propagating would help you to stay calm, peaceful, no guilt. At the end of the day, you feel satisfied. At the same time, it will help you climb up the ladder and reach to a larger society. So the translating from an individual self to the next circle to the larger society, the circle is very individualistic, individual journey.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So one needs
That
to
means we need
approach.
to, like, yeah, we need to think and rethink and make as you rightly said, the top lane to be very stable at certain kind of a backup before we bounce on into taking up dance as the main profession. I think that is the call for the day, as you rightly said. I think it's very important for us to, like, think twice before getting into any. I think it is true for any job for that matter.
Any
You need to
profession,
have
actually.
any profession, so we need to have a backup, and it is very, very critical if we are going to take up dance or any art form as of now, unless and until you get a government university job or a government teacher job, teaching job in under the government umbrella. So
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Otherwise, like you mentioned, any job, every single job has its own demands, has its
Correct.
own set of insecurities. So everything is uncertain. Even an IT professional might have
Yes.
to face loss, job loss, right? So the fear will always be there if you're not meeting the demand. So if you have to be running, like be in the light, then you have to put in and create something. It's not that I'm going to sit, I won't do anything, and yet I need to be recognized. That can't happen. Like,
Very well said, Anil. Thank you so much for giving your time for Sankatha. And I think it's been a great 1 hour time exactly. I think
wow,
we've been disturbing you with a lot
I
of
didn't
different
realize the
questions at
time.
different levels. And I'm sure the audience have got appropriate answer for most of your questions. And also, I think the main key point of the session was how do we stabilize economically. One thing. The second one is how do we stabilize, mental well-being in an overall sense, and not something like, don't go to the hearsay saying that something will be healed through dance. That is a far way said thing. So I think, yeah, those kind of things coming from you as a very from your knowledge was very nice. And it's nice to know about your what we can say, love towards the traditional compositions and the way you're propagating it. We wish you all success in all your endeavors, and wish to see more and more of your performances and all kind of works of yours in future. Thank you so much, Anil.
Thank you, Sagar, for your kind words. And also, like I often tell, these kind of discussions always give scope to mull over different thoughts that comes in this conversation. So thank you for putting those information or the worms in my head now. So maybe something more to think and reflect on. So I'm really grateful for this, the learning that I would be carrying on from this interaction as well. Lot to reflect on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you, everybody. Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu.